3 children,
30 animals,
30 animals, and
300.
300 employees. So that's a lot of responsibility.
Yes.
And when we met, what hit me most was your fear about losing it all.
Yeah.
That's what that's what connected with me, and I was like, okay, let's do this.
Well, yeah, I was in your office literally crying every other day. So I'm sorry about that. But
Not at all.
yeah, so going back to the fear, one of the things, when you have a migraine, and I have friends that have gone through this, and we all know other people, is when you get a migraine, you expect it to, impact your whole day. And then if you're one of the unlucky people that has a migraine for a week, then you're like, okay, it's going to impact all of these activities. How do I get my children to where they need to be? How do I take this important work meeting? I have a presentation due, whatever it is. If it lasts a month or if you have it for years, you when you're in the initial shock of it, I feel like, when I try to explain it to people, it's like learning how to live. If God forbid, you're in a car accident and you lose your, being able to walk, and your whole life needs to be readjusted. It's a lot like that when that first migraine that lasts, months hits you. You really have to relearn how to live. You can't live the same way you used to. And for someone who has so much going on, there's no room for error. And I honestly don't remember some of those first few months because they were so horrifying. When I first met you, I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to take care of my children. Um, I was contemplating actual like nerve surgery. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like migraine surgery where they essentially go in and cut your nerves to your head. It's like not what you want. And months of rehab from that, where they told me I couldn't even pick up my baby, and I don't have anyone else to pick up my baby. He was, 6 months at the time. So I was like, how I can't parent, like I can't be a mom, like what do I do? And then I ended up in the hospital and 5 days of that, and thankfully different friends and my um, chosen family, I should say, stepped up to the different roles, and helped. But that couldn't have lasted forever. They all have their own lives and their own children and their own responsibilities. They couldn't run my life for me. So at one point, I was on the phone. Well, not at one point, a lot of points I was on the phone crying with my boss, the executive director, and saying like, please replace me. Like, I'm so sorry. I can't do my job. And at that point, I had been with the agency for 15 years. I established many of the programs that we run. And so thankfully, that's another part of my family. And my job was like, no, like, go take care of yourself, like, do what you need to do. And Task is really amazing in that way. It's
Task.
the Adult Skill Center, where I work. I'm the deputy executive director, and so I have many responsibilities there. But my boss was just like, no, like take the time that you need. We're not replacing you. Like, don't be crazy. Just do what you have to do. And so at that point, I stayed home for probably 6 months. I couldn't drive. I mean, I couldn't shop. Like, it was terrifying. And so then when I met you and I started seeing glimpses of relief, anytime there was any backsliding, which happens in migraine treatment, like you'll start getting a little bit better, and like maybe you'll go a week in like a pretty good place, and then you'll get it again. All of that fear that you felt for those 6 months or a year all comes flooding back in, and it is terrifying because you think, oh my gosh, what if this right now, the way I feel right now, doesn't go away for 6 months? And you can't plan your life, you can't do anything, and it is absolutely terrifying. And you're in pain like in intense pain. So of course you can't think straight. So then depression and anxiety sets in, and then you're getting treated for that. And then, I will say the other modality that helped me other than you is therapy essentially. I did hypnotherapy, which was helpful, and just good old therapy in terms of like how I think about my attacks in order to not trigger that intense fear and anxiety, because then it's a loop. The more intense you are, the more pain you're going to have. The more pain you have, the more tense you are, the more scared you are, and it's a vicious cycle that is really really hard to get out of. And so, luckily, some of the therapists I had were able to treat or help me like reframe how I look at pain. And most pain groups, that's what they focus on, is reframing like how your body reacts to pain. So that's the only other thing that's been helpful.
Yeah.
Definitely not pharmaceutical like interventions. Yeah, like we talked about.
No, it's critical. This is, as I mentioned in the first segment, it is a terror campaign within your body.
Yeah.
Like it is like constantly being under terrorist attack. You never know when
Mm-hmm.
it's going to hit.
Yep.
You never know if you're going to get better. You never know. You start losing faith in your body and thinking that you can't win. You just, this is an unwinnable battle, and that's where things
Yeah.
like depression and anxiety can really spin out of control easily.
Yep.
Easily, it's. I never had a heart attack, but I've I have a lot of experience with migraine, and I believe it is that level of pain in your brain.
Yeah.
It is incapacitating, debilitating, nauseating. Hope that you pass out just so that you can have a
Yeah.
couple of minutes
Of
of
relief.
a
Absolutely.
reset, of relief. And then you start thinking of ways that you can induce that,
Right.
right? So,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, it's brutal. And
it's
if you
warfare.
have, and if you have a toddler like I
Ugh,
did,
I can't
there's
even
no way
imagine.
to explain. Well, now he's a toddler. He was a baby at the time. Like, you can't be like, oh, I need, like,
Yeah.
I can't do screaming right now. Like, I can't do loud play. Like, and that's just, and as a mother, you just feel so depressed. I mean, when you feel like you can't even be a mom, you can't, your identity, my identity was my job and being a mother. And so your identity gets taken away from you. It's everything. And like you mentioned, every day it's those of you who live with migraines, those days where before you open your eyes, you know that it's there. When you gain consciousness in the morning and you know that it's there, and your entire heart sinks into your stomach and you feel nauseous because you know that the next 15 hours of your life are going to be a battle to get through the day. Like, whatever it is you have to do, it's going to be a horrible battle for 15 hours until you can go back into bed and hope and pray that the next day you wake up and you don't feel it right when you gain consciousness. And most of the time you do,
Yeah.
because it's months or days or weeks long. And so it's awful. It's absolutely awful. Or like planning a trip, or I speak at conferences all the time. I have presentations, and not knowing whether you're going to be able to get up there, and like, how do you commit to things. I remember not being able to buy tickets for anything for like a year because I didn't know what it was going to be like on the day of whatever the ticket was for.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And I want to shift gears because I think we've covered this enough for most people
mm-hmm.
to realize what we're talking about. tell me what your life has been like in the past year and change that we have been working together. First of all, wins. Give me wins that you never thought you were going to get back to.
Just being normal. Like I was like a keynote speaker a couple of times this year at different conferences. I went out of the country twice with my kids, to take them on vacation. I went to see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which if
It's
you
loud and
is
a lot
loud
of
and a
lights.
lot of lights.
And
Yeah,
if
if
you've
you
ever
haven't
had
been.
migraines, you know that does
That's like
not
the
work.
word. That's the
Yeah.
test. That's the
Yeah.
migraine test. Is going to see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So all wins. I mean, I function normally. There's very few days, maybe a couple a month, if not less, at this point where my activity is impacted. There's days where I'm like, oh, it's kind of like in the background and it's like I'm not like that thrilled about it, but I can easily forget about it and just move on with my day. There's very few days where I'm actually like impacted and I have to change what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's a huge win compared to being completely incapacitated for a year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing story, and that's why I had you in, and why I believe you are a shining example, an inspiration of not just migraine sufferers, but any woman who is driven the way that you are to serve, to get out there and help other people. We all face our challenges, and when it's big enough, there's always going to be something. There's always going to be some kind of challenge, and for most of us, it is the challenge that we are drawn to serve. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have a history, so you were drawn to serve that community, and in the process, among other things, it brought up the the issue for you was migraines getting in the way. And
Yep.
I'm so grateful that we work together, and that I've been able to give you that back,
Yes.
because
Thank
the
you.
work you're doing is so incredible and important. One last plug for tasks, the sanctuary,
Thank you.
whatever
Yes.
5 other things that you're doing. So please.
Yeah. Just thank you for everyone who supported me, like Dr. Palaki. The work we do is really, really important. Again, Task serves about 500 people a day in our community, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and the sanctuary is right here in Santa Clarita as well. And we have served about 30 rescue animals and countless individuals that benefit from the programs. And you're a part of that. Thank you, Dr. Palaki.
Thank you. Contact information for
Uh,
any of that?
taskservices.org and sanctuaryaat.org.
Thank you so much. Alona Yorkshire, thank you
Thank you so
for
much. I
joining us today.
appreciate it.